You guys have the tablets at your desk, two different models of them, and see if we can delete that one. This part is the one version I'm just going to demonstrate with, but it does have the stylus in this holder. Just trying to be extremely careful not knocking that around. Um, these tablets have the two buttons on either side for selecting different tools depending on what you have it set up as, and all the different dials that are on the tablet itself. And you also notice that it has this screen capture that looks like crop marks for a regular print image. So when you take a look at this, these are almost like the corner registration and crop marks that you would see. And you can actually change it so that you're just drawing within that square, or any size for that matter. But that's all located in your system preferences here. So when you click on this part, if I go back to the general location on this window, down at the bottom is the Wacom or Wacom. It's pronounced, heard it both ways. And this will give you some of the information as far as the pressure sensitivity, the amount of clicking, what these buttons on the stylus represent. So you can adjust them. Just be careful because everybody's going to be using these. You won't have the section for that. They do have an eraser on it, which is just the opposite side, and that also has some of the applications that you can set for that. And the mapping, again, is just showing you the overall size of the tablet related to the screen. So these 4 lines that you see, and you can reset it, but at first I wouldn't mess with this too much. I just concentrate on the on Illustrator, for example. So when you do have the tablet, if I have everything working right, the brush part right here lets you illustrate this section. And if you go into the brushes themselves, you can set up these lines. The only thing that's tricky about using this is trying to set up the actual lines themselves. So when you do some of these profiles, you know, I'm pushing and then kind of letting this go up. So it is giving me a little bit of flexibility. It's almost very similar to the drawing with the Sharpie markers. You illustrate this part through. And if you go into the brush palette, see if I got this set up here. Click this on here. So this part, I'm just going to separate it here temporarily. When it goes through this, you have all these presets, if you haven't tried them before, for these brushes. So it's not really using it like a paintbrush per se, but when you open this up, you have these different locations. And the artistic one, and the artistic with the ink, this one sets this part up, and you can toggle through this when you go in the library and you're in this palette right here, for example. Okay, so you have the windows down here that you can go back and forth. Just remember, it's different than Photoshop, since Photoshop is the raster and this is a vector. This brush is treated as a vector image, so it does have the memory that's being rendered to illustrate that piece down below. But it'll give you this part. And the one I want to concentrate on is just this brush right here, because of all the drawing I've been trying to tell you to do with the pen and ink, this is the one that simulates this the most, and that's the actual line that you get. When you click on the size of this, you can see it's only at 1 point. It goes down as a default to a 1/4 point, and if you want this any smaller, you have to put in the decimals to make it even smaller than that, so you can get a very fine line. I thought I put it in there, maybe not. 0.2. So there's a very, very fine line for that. Still trying to keep with these parameters that has the point on either side. It has a circle and a point and a square and a point, depending on which way you're drawing. The only thing that's tricky about this is that when you want this type of brush, you have to keep going back to set all these things up. So what you can do is just do almost like a palette of brushes. And what I mean by that is you can, off to the side or off of the margin at least, you can set these up. And keep in mind this profile is set to uniform right now, and you can change that. So let me just do a couple here first. So there's the one, and we'll do a 0.25. So I have these three set up, but to keep going back into the menu, it's not all that fun. So you're trying to adjust these as you go. So I'm going to put a profile on that with this brush and with that style. So you're able to create some pieces, but it's still, delete that one. I'm going to set this up even smaller, go to 0.5 point. So it has a calligraphic type line. And when you do the drawing, depending on how you like to work, this is just a suggestion for it. Move all these guys out of the way now. So that now if I have the B for brush and I'm working through this, again, the keystroke, let me show you that if I can. This part here, the circle, allows me to zoom in and out of the, or select some of these pieces and cycles through that part. So I was trying to show that to you as you zoom on there. But I have the brush selected, and I can hold the command key down and click on this and let go, and it's back to the brush, and it's grabbing that particular style of brush, and I don't have to go back and try to reset it. You can save them, but this is just an easier way, and you can save them to your network, but this will kind of smooth pieces up as you go. But when you draw this with Illustrator, the nice thing about this is that this is a very, very good vector shape, and it's giving you some pretty nice lines. It does have, like I said, the erasers on the back, but you'll get used to it if you like trying this part. But again, this is the tablet, so everything that you can come up with to shade. Now, if you wanted to color this drawing, I didn't really draw anything, but let me just do this part here, just so you understand the limitations and how you can work around it. So this conglomeration of shapes, if I wanted to color this in, I could either color behind it, but I would lose some of the drawing. But say I wanted to color this part in, I could do the part where you go into the live paint and make. And as soon as I hit make, you get this warning that it'll let you do it, and it'll cover that circle that's pretty big. If I click OK, all of the stylings that came with the brush are gone, but it does allow me to color this in. Okay, and only the shapes that have been made shapes unless you use some of the gaps, which we haven't talked about. So undoing that. So before you do it, if you're done with it, or you can go back and forth, is just go to Object and go to Path and outline the strokes. And now they become shapes that they're no longer related to the brush. You can't change them, but you can go into Live Paint and make this. And now when you click the letter K to go through this part, you're filling these pieces in with this part. So there's, like I said, there's some idiosyncrasies between the vector, which is Illustrator, and Photoshop. They both have good qualities. They're just not combined together 1000%. But that'll give you the selection. So now this becomes a shape. And this is back to the brush. And again, here's the brush. If I wanted to grab one of these, just Option and select to grab that preset. So hopefully you get to try this, but that'll give you that selection for it.